now call to order the December 9th, 2014 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic within the city of Oshkosh. We are an advisory board and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If the board does not recommend an item and you don't agree with our decision, you may discuss the item with any common council member, and the council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding the item. All items recommended by this board require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, December 23rd, 2014 at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, January 13th, 2015, the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak to the item. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you would like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item you are speaking to. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. Okay. Approval of minutes. I'll move it.
Second.
Ross?
Aye.
Oz?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
Carried, 4-0.
Okay, item 1 on new business. A request for 2-hour parking on Commerce Street, west side, from CP Ave to Pearl Avenue. Current condition, 30-minute parking and loading zone.
All right, this is from the last meeting. We voted at the last meeting to remove the 2 loading zones on the west side of Commerce Street at the request of the owners of City Center. And they thought that those were there from the Morton's Pharmacy, but I've since found out that they were there. Carmel Crisp had requested the loading zone there. And so in speaking with the owner of Carmel Crisps, she said she still does use that loading zone occasionally, but would be okay if we removed it, but then would like to see longer parking there of possibly 2 hours. And then I know Mr. Herman wasn't able to make it tonight, and he suggested maybe doing 90-minute parking. So that's the issue at hand, is do we leave the loading? We already voted to remove the loading zone, so if we stick with that, then just do we want to change the 30-minute parking to 90-minute or 2 hour?
State your name and address, please.
Shonda Anderson, 542 West 16th. I requested the loading zone, 3 years ago, and it was after Morton's had closed for a couple years already, and it just shifted down a little bit further because of all the deliveries and the events and stuff that I do. It's really hard to get the van loaded for all the charity events and stuff when there's someone parked in front of there. The other thing that recently I just noticed, if there's any snow, there's no way to get into the store unless the sidewalk path is open, which is part of that loading zone as well. I really only do the charity events. The charity events are primarily on weekends, so it's not like a huge deal. It's, because that's not, that is not part of the rules on the weekend. So I can, use that space. But during this time from Thanksgiving to Christmas, I have lived in that space. And as a matter of fact, had I not had it last Saturday, I don't know how I would have gotten everything done that I needed to get done. But without 2-hour parking, the 30 minutes was originally set up, if I remember correctly, for strategic when they worked in the former Klein's building. So the strategic would stay out of that parking space. Am I right? Do you remember?
I do remember something with that, but now that they're gone.
Yep, now they've moved to the other side of the city center and they have their own parking lot.
Yeah.
So I know that I talked to Foreign Print about it once upon a time, and she said that U.S. Bank will park, their employees will park there if it's 2 hours, but I just don't know if that's true or not. I have more customers that come in and are afraid they're going to get a ticket if they decide to eat and shop. So I expect to only get busier, so I really would like it 2 hours. There's part of me that would like to keep the loading zone, but I can understand the need for the parking as well.
Well, based on what Dan had brought up at the last meeting, that, make it the 2 hour type of parking, so then people visiting the hotel and or ground round can utilize it. I would say I'm in favor for just making that whole west side 2 hour.
I think Jim, you and I, we talked a little bit about 90-minute parking.
Yeah, I mentioned it.
Which may give a little more turnover, but still make it long enough for people to park there, go to Ground Round, go to Planet Perk, other places, Chandra's store, obviously.
Do we have a lot of 90-minute on-street parking in the city anymore? Or
That's a good point, to keep a
Yeah.
consistent 2 hour.
Yeah, because I thought we were going to all
It can go either way.
Yeah.
We had just had that conversation, and you're right, where we don't have a lot of 90-minute.
Yeah.
We don't want to be confusing people with that issue with the parking lots already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have no trouble supporting 2 hours. Sorry I'm late, I had another meeting.
No, I agree. Just keeping it 2 hour, just be consistent with all the other, signage in the city. So,
Any other discussion on it?
And that goes to yours, you were talking earlier about restaurants and stuff, so yeah, that's good.
And there's those few shops in the
Yeah.
parking lot too, that if you want to shop and get something
Or
to
even
eat.
if you have to go to the bank, or I think there's attorneys, well, I know there's attorneys in the
Yeah.
building and stuff, so, sometimes that takes a little longer, too, than just going into the bank and running in and out, so. All right.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any other discussion, amendments, anything? Call the roll?
Ross?
I
Haas?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
4-0.
Oh, you didn't
Oh,
call my name.
I'm sorry, Szynski,
Aye.
5-0.
Herman showed up and she took you off the road.
There you go. Yeah, I guess so.
You cancel somebody out when you come
Cancel
through.
somebody else. Oh, terrible.
All right. Item number 2, a request for no parking on Evans Street, east side from Mallard Avenue, 90 feet south of Mallard Avenue, and no parking on Mallard Avenue, south side from Evans Street to 90 feet east of Evans Street. Current condition is unrestricted parking.
This is a request of the Transportation Department. We currently have a bus transfer point at Mallard and Grove. The problem we're having there is that the riders have to cross the street to get from Route 1 to Route 4 and vice versa. So we worked with the Transit Advisory Board and with some of our drivers and riders on suggestions, and this is the solution that was approved, was to move that transfer point a block to the west to Evans Street. So then we'll transfer from Mallard and Evans. This way, it puts the buses perpendicular to each other, with one on Mallard and one on Evans, and the riders can then transfer from one bus to the other using the sidewalk instead of crossing the street. And most of our riders in that area, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them come from that area. We talked to some of the residents in the area, and they said, well, that makes sense because a lot of the riders come from the housing that's closer to Evans than it is Grove. And so it's moving in a block. And the request to remove parking is just simply so that the buses don't have to worry about maneuvering around if there are any parked cars there.
And that's consistent with the other transport points
Yes.
throughout the city? Okay.
Yes, for the most part. I mean, there are some, yes, for transfer points. There are some bus stop locations where parking technically is allowed, but we don't usually bring them forward unless it's an issue, so most of them we don't have an issue with.
Again, I was just thinking out loud of being consistent as we wanted been for, so if this is a transfer point, all our other transfer points have the same type of parking and that, proximity.
Sure.
This is residential compared to some of them.
Yeah.
How many transfer points do we have in the city?
Well, I guess it's debatable. I mean, what you consider a transfer point. I mean, we have some spots where you can transfer from one bus to another if you wanted to, but we don't formally consider those transfer points. Really, though, the only ones I would really consider transfer points would be the downtown transit center, Mallard and Grove, which we'd like to move to Mallard and Evans, and then the one where we transfer Walmart, and then the one where we transfer from Route 5 to Route 7, which is in Westtown in front of Menards. So really, technically, those are the only stops we would consider transfer points, so that'd be 4. But there are other areas where if you wanted to get from one route to another, you could.
Well, I think this makes sense. That's my opinion. Anybody else?
Move it.
Second.
Call roll.
Ross.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
That concludes new business. Any staff statements?
I just wanted to announce there's one opening on the Transit Advisory Board yet, one vacancy, so if anybody out there is interested, they can stop by here at the city manager's office and get the paperwork, or you can call in as well and they can email or mail it to you. So we're looking for one member of the board yet. That's it for me.
Anybody else got anything?
Nope.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You could run for city council.
No.